Wow, we have a lot to get into today. WWE NXT is going to have maybe twice the presence they normally would during the week of WrestleMania. We'll get into NXT AEW ratings, the potential of them moving to a different night, AEW's big, huge, very, very violent pay-per-view this weekend, AEW Revolutions. Your predictions are on screen. It's all today's podcast from WrestleZone. Oh boy, it's going to be WrestleZone. What's up? How you doing? I am Kev Kelm over there, a faithful friend of the show. Now I would say a regular. He's becoming a regular. You should definitely check out his podcast, which is probably, especially in the pandemic age, the closest we can be to sitting, drinking, maybe imbibing and other things, while riffing about whatever is randomly on television. Remember what that was like when you could be with people you haven't seen in a long time? Now you just see your friends on screens. Imagine how hard this would be without this technology. Keith Hazel, check out This is Keith Hazel's podcast. It's available on all the different apps. I enjoy it the most on YouTube because you do this crafty thing where you, whatever is on the television that you're watching at the time with the very funny Adam Crocius, you put it on there, but you can hear it a little bit.
Can hear it a little bit. I have to be very choicey with the audio. The audio is where they get you on copyright.
Okay. That's where they get you. We've gotten that before too, so I know what that's like. Plenty to get into today. If you guys are with us live, we're talking about AEW Revolution this Sunday. We also have some exclusive news coming out of AEW concerning an injury. All right, we will talk about that within the next few minutes of the show. So don't worry if you're only going to watch for a little bit. Don't worry, we're going to give a whole bunch of stuff here. Also, your predictions for AEW Revolution are going to be on screen, and there are a lot of predictions I think fans need to know about, like, who is this Hall of Fame worthy person that is being teased for the pay-per-view that's supposed to show up?
Two people.
One of them is Hall of Fame worthy. One of them is not. One thing I'll ask you guys to do is share the link, because if you share the link, you could win this. I bought a whole stack of these. When I saw them. This is the Road to WrestleMania activity and trivia book. It's mainly meant for children, but wrestling is watched by children of all ages, right? You could do fun stuff like draw your own championship. All right. And they have all different types of questions and stuff like that. So maybe we'll read some questions before you go. For some reason, they did one where you have to draw the eyebrows on Drew McIntyre. I don't know why did he lose a match where instead of losing his hair, he lost his eyebrows? You see that one? Hang on, let me hold that up to the camera. That's weird. Like that's very odd. All right. So, yes, for you guys on the podcast side of things, maybe that doesn't work for you, but you can still win as well. You can still win if you're listening to the show. Go ahead and hit us up on Twitter at WrestleZone.com. Keith, let's get into it. AEW, banger of a show last night for them. Quite the go home for this weekend's pay-per-view, correct? Keith? I lost Keith. Maybe Keith will come back to me here in just a minute. But yes, AEW was quite the episode this week. Sound off on it. Let me know what you guys are thinking of it. Was Shaq the big go-home hype that they needed? He got splashed through a table by Cody. People say, we don't care about the lame pay-per-view. Mel, come on. You know people care about the lame pay-per-view. So here's the thing. All the hype, all the hype is present there. All the hype is present for this pay-per-view in such a big way. The ratings are in. The overnight ratings for both shows came in, and AEW proved to have their highest performance of the year. Their highest performance of the year so far. And let me see if Keith is going to rejoin me here in just a second here. Trying to get back on now. So yeah, Keith, we'll get you back in here in just a second here. So the numbers pretty strong here for AEW. They are in the 900,000 range, and you got to think that's pretty good. Now, NXT is down just a bit. I wouldn't say a lot, but just a bit. So here's where things are. AEW Dynamite viewership is going to hit its 2021 high so far. They hit an average overnight viewership of 934,000 viewers. This is up from last week's 831,000. Excuse me. The show was number 6 on cable for the night, beaten out by some NBA games, Married at First Sight, and MTV's The Challenge. whereas NXT viewership down slightly, 692 from 734 the week before. A 0.20 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. AEW still has the male 18 to 49, 18 to 49 demographic, people 18 to 49 demographic, 0.33. This is down from a 0.35. Not too much of a drastic loss, but this falls on the news that we've been hearing here for a week that WWE NXT is potentially going to move to a different night. Now, we are still waiting on an announcement from WWE to confirm this, but we've heard it from several sources. Now, this ratings battle, some people think it's been exhausted. Some think this is WWE tapping out. I say it's not that. I say there's a lot of other things that are involved here because WWE doesn't own the TV station they're on. NBC Universal does. They're on USA Network. They're shutting down their cable sports property and including that into their wider variety of programming that USA Network is. It's a variety cable channel. So they're going to put NHL games there on Wednesday night, other sports as well. They also have the Olympics coming up this summer, which could shift a lot of different things around. Even some people are even debating whether they could shift Monday Night Raw. So here we are, Keith. The ratings battle continues. AEW has a great night, just 4 nights out from a huge pay-per-view for them.
Yeah, it was big. I was wondering too because they announced that the Shaq was going first, and I was like, they want to get a gauge on the ratings. Definitely, they want to see what kind of eyes Shaq could pull. It's
the Saturday night main event model. They would do this with Hogan in the '80s when WWE broke out big. Put Hogan in the first quarter hour, have him lean out. And they did 12 minutes, so they were pushing for the 15-minute thing. And they did go to commercial with it.
The whole show was pretty front loaded.
Yeah, very front loaded, and ended with an angle that I think they could even open the show with kind of like a pull apart tag team brawl, and they've done that many times. I was almost like, this is kind of like a soft ending for such a hot open with this huge celebrity doing some very, very physical things, going through a table. He had Sports Illustrated today reporting that he got knocked out. They did the angle with him in the ambulance. I mean, I thought it was really, really cool.
It was huge.
I thought he looked great. I thought Jade Cargill looked great. First match, she looked like $1 million.
And the ambulance angle genuinely confused me because usually when they do stuff like that, you're like, okay, I can see where this is going. But when they opened it, I was like, wait, why would he be gone? What is he, the Undertaker? Like, what's going on here?
The Undershacker. That's what's happening.
But then if you look at NXT, they, for the first time, didn't even compete. They didn't front load their show at all. Like, you could tell they made a choice of like, let's not worry about Shaq. Let's do our thing. And
then they did it the other way. They did the reverse wave. Let's do an overrun. Let's have a really, really strong, great championship, our champion feature at the end of the night to really set up some things.
Yeah.
And, NXT, for what you can say, 692, it's not a huge down point here. The thing is, AEW had the better night because they went up significantly from where they've been recently. So there's been a lot of added interest. I think that bump is clearly from Shaq. That bump is clearly from Shaq. And I think you're going to see him utilized more in the future. I don't know how they pull that deal off, but it's quite the coup. And they also have Big Show. So a lot of people think the Big Show Shaq match has to happen. I think maybe that's a big reason why Big Show went there, because he gets to finally have that match he's been wanting for a long time.
You could tell Shaq had fun too, because so much of the build up to this, I was like, Shaq's doing TNT a favor. Like they want a big name in there, and Shaq's their guy. But then you saw him out there and how he went through that table and he just got everything. You're like, oh no, he's a fan. He wanted to do this. Like, he actually looks like he's having fun.
So it's an impressive layout here. We'll do a bigger rundown of the AEW Revolution card within the show here today. Do want to cover some of the NXT news from last night. We had a big post show, by the way. If you guys want to go even more in depth into all that, we have that with John Clark as well. Lot to cover here. I thought NXT had a strong night. Everyone says this is a bad number for them. I think it's a pretty strong number, because another thing that's worth noting is their demo number is up. So their demo number is holding. I want to know what the quarter hours are like. And also the fact is that NXT is now in Canada. I haven't seen what those numbers just look like yet. I don't know if they've actually debuted on that new night that they're up there, though. So that's worth noting here. My thing is, everyone's saying, oh, WWE won the fight. The report is that NXT is going to move to a different night, likely Tuesday, could potentially be Thursday, but a lot more people are hearing Tuesday night. I think it's good. It's good for wrestling. It's good for fans that want to watch both shows. I think the tribalism is stupid. The tribalism is still going to be there, because I think you're still going to have fans who still want to just go online. We have them in the comments every single show. They're always going to go online and want to just stir stuff up and go and find someone to have an internet fight with. That's never going to go away. You and I have friends that love doing that. Like, love it. They adore the opportunity. It's Yankees and Red Sox.
And you can't even criticize or like we have friends where anytime I say something that was off on Dynamite, they're just like, you and your Jim Cornette shit. And I'm just like, that's not what I'm saying. I just didn't like this one thing.
Well, and there's plenty of things on AEW that think that irk maybe more traditional, like Lee focused fans. And I think there's just some fans that I think they enjoy AEW because it's a big time wrestling promotion and they've just been worn out by WWE. They've just been worn out by WWE. They want wrestling. They just don't want it to be WWE. They want superheroes. They just don't want it to be Marvel. Yeah,
and I think WWE is just at a point too, and I've mentioned this when I'm on here before, that they're just so big that I don't think they're at a point where they have to be kind of conservative, where they're like, because this Johnny Gargano story, this has been going on for months, like this whole, and it seems annoying, but then you think about it and you're like, well, this might be the best for them than just them trying a bunch of stuff that fails when they got something that's kind of working and they're stringing it out a little bit. I think people criticize,
and it's long-term storytelling.
I was just going to say that they always say WWE's always shooting their shot, and they're finally
and the exception to all those things that people complain about on Raw or SmackDown, those tropes that they've come up and certainly developed in the last few years, which is mainly because WWE is simply producing so much. So they have to come, like 6 month storylines get pounded into 3 months that feel like 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
So with NXT, it doesn't feel like that because they don't have to push to a pay-per-view every month.
Yeah.
You know,
they just want people like, here's our top guys. Let's just make sure they're doing stuff every week.
In the overall competition here, and even if I think NXT goes to a different night, that competition will still be present. People will still want to make that comparison. That perception will still be there. And that perception is still going to be there for AEW. Now, Nick Fun saying WWE can't deal with the competition. I believe he's saying competition here. So here's the thing. I think they can, because I think the question really is, how come neither one of these shows were regularly above 1 million viewers?
Right.
I think that's clearly a much more of a bigger issue with both wrestling shows. And also, like, besides this past week with Shaq, WWE was within 100,000 of them for the past 3 weeks. So, I mean, and they had that bump coming off the Vengeance show. I thought they looked strong there. They showed some growth. Was it infinitely bigger? No, but AEW was right around where they were. I think, like, as I say, I think fans that watch Raw and SmackDown, or at least follow them, and then they go to Wednesdays, they say, I'm just going to choose a show that isn't WWE. And it has a lot of great stars on it, and it tells a great show. And guess what, guys? You can watch both. You can watch both, and you can enjoy both, and you don't have to pick a side. Billionaires have to fight for your time. That's the power you have over these two well-financed outfits. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and you can enjoy both.
And I think WWE's finally realizing that they don't have to compete with AEW. AEW is so far from even becoming close to what WWE is. I think they should just settle down, let AEW catch up to them if they can, and then when they do, then you could worry about it. But I think it showed that when both shows went opposite nights, they both rated better. I think it's better for both shows.
Yeah, and that experiment that was done here, I love this one here from our Twitch account. By the way, we're streaming now on Twitch. If you guys haven't done it, if you like video game streams and stuff like that, you can catch all of our shows in there. We're going to start doing some special watch-alongs. I might make the phone call to you on that, Keith.
Ooh, that's my
some watches. Maybe we get we get some old NWO WCW revenge going. I think it'd be fun for that. We'll do some game streams as well. B-Last saying EC Dub. Yes, I have the barbed wire behind me today on our background. So I thought, like, we got to do that because we're talking exploding barbed wire in a little bit. We will talk Moxley and Kenny and who that big surprise will be. But more on this, the AEW NXT thing. I think it's been really interesting. It's definitely a night for the hardcore, the hardest of the hardcore wrestling fan. This is the night for the network subscriber. This is the night for the people that follow the Meltzer 5-star rating. This is the night for those fans. Is it a night for new fans? That is my concern. But as much as fragmented media gets, you have to super serve people now to get them behind these pay windows, like a WWE network that's going to be a Peacock, like a Netflix, like an HBO Max. That I think is the missing piece for AEW. They're going to do a traditional pay-per-view this weekend. They're going to ask people to pay $50.
Yeah.
Last 10 years, we've been conditioned to get me up for an HBO Max or a Netflix or a WWE Network or something like that. And I think that's still, I mean, obviously UFC doesn't have that same issue. They still have their own streaming service, but they still ask people to pay, a real big traditional pay-per-view price. With wrestling, I think it's a different story because it's a mixture of, the comic book fan and the sports fan together. I think they need to figure out that. For me, that's the real thing. Once they have a real traditional streaming deal behind a traditional monthly pay-per-view price, a subscription price, that would be the real performance measure for them. That would be like, all right, now we're talking real deals. And I think that's the direction they're going in by producing an additional show for TNT. They're also talking of them doing, that's what the Elevation Dark show is, what Dark It Is itself on YouTube. What's to stop them from moving that behind, another streaming service? Keith is frozen. Frozen Keith. Let's get into your comments here as we roll ahead here. The real competition, coming from Fan Sports 5, the real competition will be if AEW can compete with Raw or USA. I'm going to say no on that, Fan Sport, because those are such established nights for television. Those are routines that are so ingrained in a lot of casual people.
Yeah.
SmackDown is on a network television show, which is accessible to anyone who doesn't even have the internet. You can get network TV.
They get 3 million just being on Fox.
Yes. And like also when people see these 2 million numbers, let's be frank, AEW probably had over 1 million viewers last night. All right. They probably did that. Because Nielsen viewers are not incredibly accurate. And NXT probably had over 1 million viewers. I'm just talking about within the Nielsen overnight ratings game. These are the numbers they have to play, do their ad rates on. So
I watched it twice. I watched it on TNT's website and then on the Pacific run at 8 o'clock out here because we get it. I can watch it at 5 live and then I can watch it at 8 o'clock Pacific time.
What's that experience like for you with the Pacific time on pay-per-views and stuff like that?
It's cool because I get to watch it kind of before everybody else out here, but sometimes I just wait till the Pacific run anyway because I'm usually on the bus and rushing home. Sometimes it's a little too early, so sometimes I like waiting, but I like it because I can watch I can watch both shows. I can watch NXT or AEW and then I'll watch the 8 o'clock NXT. I'll flip flop them, so I don't have to choose which show to watch. I'll just watch both of them.
So we do have some developing news here from AEW, and this is news that we can sort of almost exclusively report at WrestleZone.com. We heard the unfortunate news that Anthony Bowens of the Acclaimed tag team had suffered a meniscus injury. Now we can tell you that injury is not as severe as was unfortunately worried with at the initial time, and that he could be back in the ring within a month or so. All right, so that is something we have up now at WrestleZone.com for you to cover. We also have an exclusive new interview with Al Snow talking about Ohio Valley Wrestling, a promotion that has launched the careers of some of the biggest names of all time. John Cena, Randy Orton, they all have their roots in Ohio Valley Wrestling. No longer under the WWE banner, but still a great promotion. Eugene was a huge name there. Jim, you mentioned Jim Cornette earlier. Jim Cornette, a huge name there. So plenty of stuff to talk about with Al Snow, who looks jacked. He looks like the best I've ever seen him. It's an incredible interview. Dominic D'Angelo just put that one in the books. We also have an interview as well with Big Money Matt Hardy. That dropped yesterday with him talking about the creative challenges of being in the pandemic and how when he moved to AEW last year, how he had to change from Broken Matt into Big Money Matt again, and how that's advanced to this current angle here with Adam Hangman Page. Those are up on our video and podcast channels. If you haven't checked it out already, go give them a look, especially if you're getting ready for the pay-per-view. So let's get into the card here for this big pay-per-view on Sunday. The card has come together late, but it's a pretty stacked card. What's the match, do you think, that is the big selling point? It's got to be this freakish creation that they're going for. One of the most obscure yet violent matches in wrestling history, on par with the Hell in a Cell. And it is the exploding barbed wire death match. When you say it, it sounds like a death metal album.
3 matches in one, basically.
Yes, 3 matches in one. All the angles in one thing. This is Jon Moxley taking on AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. This will be their 3rd match, their 2nd on pay-per-view since the beginning of AEW. And this is becoming sort of the Shawn Michaels Undertaker of AEW, the prime chestnut franchise rivalry that they can go back to from time to time.
And I think this is a perfect example of how you do long-term storytelling, because when it's happening, it kind of seems too scattered, where you're like, they fought kind of when AEW first opens up, and then like 4 months later, they have another match, and then they're going to have this one. This has been a 2-year feud, basically, to where when it's going on, you're just like, wait, why are they having these random Moxley Kenny matches? And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, you're like, oh my God, this was a whole story the whole time. Like, they were doing a great piece of long-term storytelling.
And they've gotten away from it and came back to it with just enough time, you know? And I mentioned the Michaels Undertaker one. They've done that many times, but they always give it enough time away from each other to kind of do a different version of it. Almost like a good Star Wars movie. Give me 3 or 4 years between the episodes, you know?
And I think they're going full Japan. I don't think this is the end of it, because Moxley still has to go away because of his baby. I think they're going to play into that, to where Moxley gets killed on Saturday, and then
killed, quote unquote killed.
Yeah.
Say that the WrestleZone dudes said that someone's going to be murdered.
He gets ambulanced, and then 6 months later, you forget about it, and then you're like, oh my God, we can do another Mox Kenny match.
Shout out to Jose Gonzalez, friend over at Sportskeeda, saying, man, this is going to be brutal. I got Omega for the win. Who do you got winning this thing? It's an exploding barbed wire death match. Speaking of Twitch, I was thinking about doing a watch along of that infamous exploding barbed wire death match, which took place in a stadium because they had to get fans away from the ring. They couldn't have fans near the ring because you have explosions around the ring.
Doing this in the Jaguar Stadium, then, right?
I believe, I don't know. That isn't abundantly clear. There's a lot about this match that isn't exactly known. So it's an exploding barbed wire death match. The initial famous one, and there's been several done. Most of them were done by Japanese legend Onita, who was actually a part of the video package last night at AEW Dynamite. We did not physically see Moxley or Kenny Omega on this week's show, but really it was about the countdown special they were doing after the main Dynamite television show and that video package, and Onita being on it and the history of it, and they had footage from it. That was really good. They referenced the wrestling history of this, and that is the part of the hardcore wrestling brand. This is the hardest of hardcore matches. Moxley is that incarnation. Omega is a fan darling within that same community. So there is a lot of sauce on this thing, man. This is the hot sauce challenge of wrestling. This is the hot one, man. How hot can you go? Yeah. And I think I could see some casual fans saying this is too much for me, but I could also see a casual fan being, that sounds insane. I've heard about it. I've never seen it. Now I want to see it.
That's why I think they did a good job of hyping the match before because everybody knows what the feud is. Everybody knows Moxley and Omega. And because I think the one complaint is like, nobody knows about Onita and the stadium matches. Well, now they do. Now you get people familiar, and you're doing it enough to where you're laying it out to where you're like, oh, that sounds intriguing. Like, you're not just blatantly showing footage of Onita. You're having them talk about it. Like, you could have just showed Onita getting blown up for 5 minutes, and then people would be spoiled on what it is. Like, I think people are still, they still don't know what it is enough to where they're like, yeah, I want to see this. I didn't think I wanted to see this, but I want to see this.
And also, like, it isn't exact. Something like a cage match, you know, for traditional wrestling fans watch a cage match. The match is the gimmick. The bitterness, the rivalry is a place in a violent match. And this is sort of that. You can only do this with certain pairings, right? You can't just put random people together for it. And it's a title match. Let's not forget that. Another thing is, you don't have to do it the same way. Any of those exploding barbed wire death matches, if you go and read about them, they were never presented essentially the same way every time. And it's less is more. You're not going to see them immediately open up with someone getting sliced up with barbed wire. They're going to tease it. It's going to all be building up to a handful of moments. They're going to get brutalized in this thing. It's going to be nasty. Yeah. It's going to be mean.
The finish, right? Once the explosion happens, the match is over, right?
Because there's been some that are like that there's like a countdown to the final big explosion, right? And you have to win the match before a certain time. And I guess tag team matches are like that. Also, you've seen the footage of this, specifically the famous Onita Terry Funk one. The referee is wearing like a blast suit. It looks like he's like a part of like a bomb, which is just insane. And I could see some memery with the very internet driven audience that AEW has, that if they go and tell Bryce Rensburg, you have to put on like this big thick bomb suit before you walk out to the ring. Like
they should just have Wally be the referee. Just have a bot out there.
A robot. It's a drone.
Yeah.
A drone just floats above the ring. Goes 1, 2. The drone has to float down. And
Vanguard
touch the
ref.
mat.
Yeah. Have Vanguard 1 do it.
Yes, Vanguard 1 is the referee for the match. Sound off with your predictions about this. I do think it is the selling point of the show. I do think this needs to be the last thing people see, right? I don't think you can put this. If you open up with this, I would feel very, very bad for whoever had to go on after. Even if it doesn't even deliver, it's such a spectacle that you're going to have to go on after, right?
Yeah, I almost thought they were going to do the lights out thing too, to where like Tony Khan wouldn't sanction this, so he'll let it be for the title, but it's going to be after the show type of thing, like they did with the first death match they had when he went through the glass table.
Oh, well, and this is also sanctioned, by the way. You know what I mean? So, and if you guys are watching this live, go ahead. If you're excited for Omega Moxley exploding barbed wire death match, I can't forget that there's going to be explosions because the barbed wire wasn't enough, right? You can also support the show. Just give us a like. If you're pumped for this match, you're pumped for the pay-per-view, go ahead and sound off on it. Let's get into what I think is the other big match on this show. Just for the AEW World Tag Team titles, the Young Bucks. The beloved sons who brought AEW into fruition saw their father brutalized. And by brutalized, I mean ketchup was smeared on his face to look like blood.
It was so red.
And the word was that he legitimately wanted to get some real color, brother. But that wasn't the case. He was attacked by MJF and Chris Jericho, the number one contenders from the evil faction of the Inner Circle. This has all the notes. It's a classic good guys versus bad guys tag team title match. What say you, Keith?
I don't know. I thought I was going to be more excited about the whole Jericho and MJF. Like, I just wish they were getting to Jericho getting kicked out of the Inner Circle more, because that's where this is ultimately leading, right? Like, that's where I get a little turned off, is like, is this about MJF kicking Jericho out, or are they really trying to win the tag titles? Like, what's the point of them even having a tag title match if ultimately he wants him out of the Inner Circle?
And you have all that, and if you follow the show, if you don't follow, maybe you're on the NXT crowd, you're just like, what are they doing? They got Jericho involved in all this stuff, right? He's running this faction, and his first big recruit was Sammy Guevara to come into this group that he wanted to form around himself. And that guy quit on the band. He quit on the group, and he didn't want to deal with MJF, this loudmouth, being in the group. And that's where they are. And that's been going on for 5 months. That's one of the longer stories in terms of just active stories. The Moxley Omega thing, they've stopped it. They've picked it up. They put it away. They took it back off the shelf. This one's been going on since sometime in the fall. You know, that's really long for modern wrestling.
Really long time. And I think they've been going to, because I like a little comedy, but I think it's been too silly to play out that long.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Herman German suplex to car.
I could see that.
Is texting and saying, I see Sammy helping the Inner Circle. Could Guevara become the element? We haven't seen him on television, nearly a month.
And I think maybe that might be the play, since he had that whole futz up with Impact, because he was supposed to be on Impact for the last month. So they might be bringing him back sooner than later. So I could see that.
Bob texting and saying the match on the card I'm most looking forward to is a street fight that has been built great. I agree, but could this be a defining win for the Bucks? I don't see them losing the belts. It feels like we're going to get a great match with some type of angle.
It's going to be some sort of deception between Jericho and MJF that cost themselves the title, and then they'll build off that, and then the Bucks will go on to face whoever.
Sounds about right, too. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
But yes, let's get into this street fight. This is another big selling point, is the in-ring returner, in-ring or in action, whether maybe this street fight takes place completely outside of the ring, involving the Icon Sting. He comes to AEW at the beginning of December. It was a huge night for them at that point. Kenny Omega won the belt, but the real talking point that night was Sting! And he is back on TNT, back where people really saw him in the mainstream audience for a big portion of his career. Got the spinal stenosis injury, very, very scary in WWE. This is a 61-year-old man. Plenty of debate about whether or not he should be getting in the ring, being physical. But as we've seen the past couple weeks in these kind of brawls they're doing, these short, quick brawl segments, between him and the opposition of Team Taz, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks. Looks like Sting can do a handful of things and can be physical.
Yeah. That made me more excited about it. I was a little leery because the whole time I'm like, well, it's got to be cinematic because Sting can't be touched. And then the second you see him get powerbombed hard like that, you're like, okay, this could be a decent match. If he can actually bump around and do stuff, now I'm a little more excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think it could be cool to if this was the one cinematic match on it. You do a little bit of disappearing act stuff on there.
Do you think it's a selling point for the pay-per-view? Do you think this is something that makes that WCW lapsed fan see the show and say, yeah, I heard about AEW, I'll check it out?
Maybe not as much because they've been laying Sting out there a lot on free TV. So I think maybe there's a bunch of people that are like, I've seen Sting. I'm not.
And it's only been like 3 months, and they put him on TV every single week.
Yeah.
And it's not matches; it's only segments. And I think segments, when you're not doing a match all the time, are very, I don't want to say hit or miss. Their lasting power it waves up and down, different than a match, you know. And you got to protect the payoff. Is if Sting's only going to be able to get in the ring and do things to you on a very limited basis, you want to save that for pay-per-view. And that is the only counter I would say. I think we've seen a little bit too much Sting.
Yeah.
You know, I keep the mystery. He's supposed to be a mysterious character that is only elusive. And that was the greatness of him naturally, even when he could go and wrestle every week, was we don't have to have him do that every week. I don't think you need to have him in the ring with a baseball bat every week. I do like that you showed, hey, as a fan who cares about this guy and has loved him for life, he can go. You know, they gave you the wink of like, look, he took a power bomb. You know, so I hope he's healthy. I hope it's fine, and I expect Darby Allin to take most of the punishment of this because he seems like a glutton for it.
Part of me wonders if they didn't know if Sting couldn't take a bump or could, and if they kind of didn't really talk about that, like, let's get you in here and then we'll work on that. And then all of a sudden Sting was like, you know, I could get power bombed, and they're just like, oh, we could do, like, I wonder if this whole time they didn't know what they could do with him and didn't really want to ask, and were just kind of playing ball a little bit. And then one day he's like, you know, I could take a bump, right? And they're like, oh, really? Okay.
I mean, Tony Khan has been open about this and said that they've done rehearsals that they watched, and that he saw him take this power bomb, and they were comfortable with it. And furthermore, that Tony Khan said, I want that. That's what I want in an angle. I want you taking a power bomb. Because Tony Khan, as the head of this company, knows the heat they got when they had Matt Hardy, a guy past a certain age with injuries, took a very nasty fall, which, mind you, he wanted to take off of a platform onto a table, and he hit his head on concrete, and the match was at the All Out pay-per-view, which turned out to be one of the worst blemishes under 2020.
I wonder if the spinal stenosis is getting to be with like a torn knee ligament, where the technology has just caught up to where, like, it's not that serious of a procedure anymore. Like, Edge came back, Christian came back, Sting came back.
Sheamus has been wrestling with it for years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he's had it for a long time. And you saw the match he had on Monday Night Raw. He had a banger match, and he's getting the crap kicked out of him.
I'm even wondering maybe
I don't see Sting at 61 finessing like that. I don't think he's not going to be as fast as he is. He's not going to have the same muscle structure. He just can't do that. Can he do things that hide and protect that? We saw him do it in his last WWE run. He wrestled a smart style and took a bad bump, the buckle bomb, and that's what happened. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not ballet, brother. It's not ballet. I say that all the time here. Let's get into this big angle. It's the Face of the Revolution ladder match. All right. Now, this will feature Cody, Scorpio Sky, Max Caster won a qualifier the other night. Lance Archer will be in it. Pentagon, L0M. I still just say Pentagon.
Yeah.
Winner gets a shot at the TNT Championship, currently held by Darby, obviously. So some setup, kind of like a Money in the Bank ladder match. I'm cool with that. Now, there is a mystery spot that is left open here. Who do you think that mystery person is? Because I think that's you care about all these other guys. Some people think it's a big debuting spot. I've heard speculation of several free agents that could be in that spot. I think this is the introduction of Ethan Page from Impact Wrestling.
That would be
he made quite the splash there. He made a bunch of different digital content. He was big on Twitch. He was big on Patreon. He is very advantageous, very DIY, very goofy and all over the place, and a guy who's transformed his body in the last year. and left Impact at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in a cinematic match where he quote unquote killed himself. And I think that's a guy they want. They want their own Matt Hardy. They want their own younger Matt Hardy, visionary, weirdo guy who wants to do everything. And I mean weirdo in the best way. I think this is how you introduce him. And he gets to do something very weird and crazy.
It would be a big pop too, because from what I read, when he quit Impact, he made it seem like he was quitting the business. Like he wrote this message of just like, I don't know what the future holds. And like, I don't know if like, he kind of made it seem like I might not wrestle again. So I think this would be a big pop if he comes out like, oh my God, Ethan Page didn't retire.
Now here's a big one from Mr. James Espanto Fernando Taguay, who's always with us. Thank you so much, James. James, I spent more time doing a podcast with you wherever you are, James. I've gotten to talk to him. He's a sweetheart. He texts in this barn burner. We know the forbidden doors are down between Impact Wrestling and now New Japan Pro Wrestling. We saw Kenta on AEW Dynamite a few weeks ago, right? And he got to do that whole side angle with Jon Moxley. Could this be a way for someone from New Japan to come over? He says Okada debuts at Revolution. I don't mean to break your heart, but New Japan is going to get real busy here with the New Japan Cup. You and I filled out our brackets with our buddies. We filled out our brackets this week. A shout out to Ross Berman. I was supposed to have him on the podcast this week, but I fumbled that. My apologies. Ross Berman is our a WrestleZone New Japan expert who has very bad sleeping habits just to follow that show. And he covered the 49th anniversary show as well.
So definitely best friend.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Tamatonga's best friend, co-host of Tama's Island as well. So he has the in on this. I don't see a New Japan guy coming over. I could definitely see either a free agent like Ethan Page, or maybe we get someone from Impact or someone from the NWA. This is definitely going to be a way to introduce a fresh character.
Yeah, maybe the Great O'Khan will come over.
What is people's beef with the Great O'Khan? Like,
I don't know. I just think it's silly. And I think it's one of those gimmicks where he's not Mongolian and they have him playing a Mongolian guy. So I just think everyone just finds it annoying because I've seen his matches and I don't think they're as bad. I just think they're not the same flippy, like forearm each other in the head 10 times.
It's weird how in Japan, in America, we had Yokozuna and we took a Samoan and we made him a Japanese sumo wrestler. In Japan, they look east. They look east,
right?
To Mongolia in Asia, and say we're going to take the Mongolian war emperor and do that.
Yeah,
which I thought I was like, oh wow, wrestling just repeats itself. It is.
But from the dig on him, I always think people think he's boring. But I mean,
he's
whatever.
Fine.
It's different.
He also just doesn't wrestle a modern New Japan, like fast-paced, strong style. Like the actual presence of him. Like if he came out in the 1980s, he'd be a huge star. Like he would be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So getting back to AEW Revolution, I think that match is going to be pretty cool. I don't think whoever debuts in that match technically wins it. I think there's someone like Lance Archer or someone they have some investment and you can see the momentum there. I can see Scorpio Sky being this is a great way to replug him into the program. He's been out of the mixer quite some time.
Yeah,
get him going again. I think also, he was working off. I think he was working off an injury.
He seems like he's turning heel too. He's getting smarmy. So I think it would be cool to have Scorpio Sky win this and then have him turn on SoCal Uncensored when they're like celebrating,
which would be ideal. Do something fresh. Especially. I think they need more bigger mid-card heels that aren't tied to Inner Circle or Omega. They need people that stand out as themselves, like a Matt Hardy is sort of doing on his own way. Have this comment here. They did say a Hall of Famer, so someone that makes no sense. To make it clear, we had Paul White, the Big Show, debut on Dynamite this week. And he said in his new shirt that says no BS, right? Because he's no longer
that was great.
Yeah, you don't have BS in AEW. They have plenty of BS.
Big Show too. No,
I know, but AEW has plenty of their own bullshit. That like there's plenty of it. You want to see a multi-man pull apart after a match? We got one every single week.
Yep.
like they have their own BS.
They commit serious crimes on the show every week, and not
every single week. The referee's count matters sometimes, and then it doesn't matter depending on who's in the ring. Like our rankings are a part of our sports-based presentation.
They had to use it as the announcing. JR had to go, oh, that was only a 2 count because they were confused on who the legal man was.
Yes. Okay. I don't care. I'll nitpick all that stuff. I don't mind. So he says He did say at AEW Evolution, and everyone wanted to hound him about that.
Yeah.
Leave him alone. He's fine. All right. So he said that a Hall of Fame worthy talent would debut as part of this match. Then there was some confusion. Tony Khan saying, no, we're going to have someone, there's going to be a new face in that ladder match, and a new guy completely separate of that. It's going to be on the show. And they kept teasing and teasing. This is on the AEW Unrestricted podcast. So away from this ladder match, somebody else is showing up on the show. And I can tell you, it is not going to be CM Punk.
Yeah, the Blackhawks are playing on Sunday.
Yes. I sent that tweet out to everybody. We got a big chuckle on that. So CM Punk has put it out there, guys. CM Punk not at AEW Revolution. I'm typing that into the chat here. What do you think of this? Obviously, everyone's just going to want to see him go there. I think if he does return to wrestling, I don't think he'll do it until fans are back. The world is completely open. Just the read of his temperament about those things, that seems to be the case of how he's approaching things. And there's other guys that are like that too. I mean, I bring it up. I listen to SiriusXM all the time. Bully Ray there says, he's like, at my age, I would just want to wait. I know I have a handful of matches. I can do a handful of things. I'm just going to wait. I think there's plenty of people that are not tied into a company right now. They're in that same position.
Yeah, I'm even trying now as you were talking. I'm like, who's even available besides CM Punk? Because he said Hall of Fame worthy, and I think people are thinking wrestlers that are currently Hall of Fame wrestlers. And I think he more meant this person will be in the Hall of Fame, because then I was like, is it Jacob Fatu or something like that? But he's like an unknown, but he's great. You know, is it one of those like younger in-ring geniuses that will be a Hall of Famer one day? Is it Sabre? Is it Zack Sabre Jr.?
that would be crazy. I think it's Big Show. I think it's Paul White.
That would be lame and great all at I think that would be great, but that would be like, oh, that's bore. Like that would be awesome for 5 minutes, and then you'd be like, oh man.
But I think the idea is they're going to swerve him, and he's going to get all of his notoriety coming in, and then he can be a big monster who can get new faces over.
Announcer. They need a heel announcer, a real heel announcer.
To make it clear, Tony Khan expressed the Hall of Fame worthy tease isn't in the Revolution ladder match, but he will sign a multi-year deal. He will sign it, a multi-year he. So we know it's a he. Yeah. So I think this is interesting.
Yeah. So what you're saying is Zelina Vega is not going to be the future AEW World Champion.
Yeah. Wow. They would definitely need some female star power on that regard here.
We all know that Gordon Grace, if you're going to do it.
Mizunami, who won the Eliminator Women's Tournament, will face Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's title. This is a match that came together out of that tournament. And this is quite the production put on by AEW to film a bracket in Japan of closed set matches and then bring the winner of that over to do the final this past Wednesday. Unfortunately, I was looking forward to this tournament. It's been fun, but everyone thought this was Brit Baker's tournament to win.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe you would make a big collision between, two people in the finals and really get the title off Shida. I think she's had a run with it. I don't know why they're going with Brit Baker as really this undercard supporting player who gets to goof around and have a fun match now and then. That's kind of the direction you're going in, but she seems so beyond that idea.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if this is because Kenny Omega is booking the women's division, right?
There's been some speculation about that. Yeah.
So I wonder if whoever is booking the women's division is not adverse to, but I think they really want to have one of their world titles be American, and I think they really want a international focus on the show. And I get that, but man, Britt Baker is just so red hot. She won Most Improved Wrestler on The Observer, so she's better in the ring. She gets real heel heat. I just think it makes sense. And then I just think along the way, the whole point of the tournament fell apart because you're like, well, if it's not for Britt Baker, then it's obviously for Riho, because they love Riho. So this is going to be Riho. She's getting her belt back. And then they have Thunder Rosa beat her. And then you're like, well, maybe Thunder Rosa is going to be their international flavor. It's a little more American than Japan. And then now you have this all Japan final where you're like, wait, why are they doing this? Like, I'm sure it's going to be a good match, but why not just have them face each other? If this was just a throw, like, I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah. Still, this is a stacked pay-per-view card. I think it is. If you're a fan of AEW and you love it every single week, and you love going online and trash talking with a WWE fan, you got to put up your money. You got to put up your money and get this pay-per-view. It's a strong show. I actually think on paper this is a little bit stronger than their last pay-per-view, and they only do the quarter. They only do these like every 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, top to bottom, yes.
And there's some matches on this that are less interesting to me that we haven't really covered. But I mean, in terms of what we looked at, like that women's match to me, unfortunately, and this is the thing you compare to NXT. NXT has a stronger women's division. They just have it. They have bigger names, more established names, a wider variety of established names. And they also have a lot of fun people coming in. They have Taya that can show up any time. They have a handful of people they recruited. They have people they can bring over from Raw and SmackDown. Whereas AEW, they're in this tough situation where we have to figure out getting them from Japan in a pandemic. And we have people that were stuck in the UK who were injured. We had to let go. We have Chris Statlander on the shelf. They're in a tougher spot with the women's division. So I kind of just I sort of wipe my hands of that.
One thing I will say is it seems like because of how Ty Conti and Brit improve so much, it seems like QT and Cody really can train these girls. Like they can train people up quick. So I'm now no longer concerned that if they sign someone who's a little iffy in the ring, they'll get them up to speed quick.
And they have multiple developments that they can go to. There's the QT school with Cody. They have the American Nightmare Factory. They have Dustin Rhodes has a school that he's working on as well. So I mean, there's also you have a lot of people that are just established independent names. You can get the big hook, I think, for a lot of AEW people, and this is a lot of them, is timing cues, framing the camera. Like pacing the match
for show needs to be fired.
Yeah, pacing the camera for television, pacing the action for television, and also framing it. Like I say, framing the camera, that isn't just setting up what you're going to do so that the camera can shoot it. It's also saying what you can do so that the angle afterwards looks good, and all those other things that you just kind of take for granted in WWE. So there's plenty of that I think AEW as a team is still learning, and you have some great people that have decades of experience shooting this show. So this is just nitpicking. This is a great show. AEW's changed the game. I'm looking forward to what they do after the pandemic. I think they're going to run arenas. I think it's going to be great. It's great for wrestling fans. NXT moves to a different night. I'm going to have an angry girlfriend who's going to be like, you have to do this how many nights? So I'm going to have that. There are going to be plenty of angry girlfriends or boyfriends out there talking about wrestling. So AEW Revolution, thumbs up pay-per-view. Got to check it out. I'm going to be texting you boys on Sunday night.
Oh yeah,
about this. So I'm on board for it.
Is this their first Sunday pay-per-view?
I think this is. They've mostly been running Sundays. I think there's a big. This is how in the wrestling bubble. I think there's a big boxing pay-per-view, and they didn't want to go up against that. Which is when you're talking about pay-per-view, I don't think you want to go pay-per-view to pay-per-view in terms of a major event.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Good position to be there. Other people guessing about who these mystery people could be, because there's two that could show up on Sunday, and wrestling fans love a good guess here. Some people saying it could be Mark Henry. Mark Henry saying, once again, another guy on Busted Open on SiriusXM, saying that he has another match left in him in the next 6 months.
He's more gas, but that's not multi-year contract.
It's not multi-year contracts. That would be the question of it. But John setting that one, and Mark Henry could be the guy. Well, I mean, you could wrestle one match and do merchandise with them for the next few years, couldn't you? Other people texting here saying, what about Will Osprey? What about Will Osprey? Another name, though, in New Japan tied to the New Japan Cup tournament, which is going to be going on here for the next week or so.
Brian Alvarez.
It's Brian Alvarez from F4W Online. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to wrestle these kinks.
Yeah. It's a great match.
Give me the big money contract.
It's awesome. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Listen, when I tweet out these ratings, this is -5 stars.
Yeah. This is Wrestling Observer Live, where Mike Sempervive will never talk.
Long pause. Long pause. Brian, I mean, I'm talking to some people and muscle jeans. So yeah, it's my Dave Meltzer impression. Love those guys. I'm goofing on them because I think they make wonderful stuff. So a lot of excitement though for the pay-per-view. I'm looking forward to it. Do want to get into this before we sign off today. NXT Takeover. We've heard about NXT moving to a different night as a television show. But there's been no discussion of what NXT TakeOver is going to be during Mania Week. And now we're finding out some big news during that. There's a potential event that has been that is sort of like leaked to us, all right, by fans who said like, hey, I'm going to cancel my network. I'm transitioning just over the Peacock deal, which is what a lot of fans are going to be doing over the next few weeks. And they found out like, hey, don't cancel just yet. Like, here's what's coming up. You know, if you want to stay on our service, and we're going to be doing the change. And in that graphic, they said this even on television last night. They have an event, April 8th. They have a takeover. Didn't allude to any matches on that show. No storyline stuff there. But certainly there's a lot of storyline things that can just make you think the shoe's going to drop next week. We're going to find out what that is. But here's how it gets more interesting. That event would be on April 8th, which would be the Thursday before WrestleMania weekend, which is April 10th and 11th. 2 nights of WrestleMania from Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown on the 5th, big go-home SmackDown. And then the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. What a week, right? No Hall of Fame, so I don't mind that. But here's how WWE would fill that gap of an additional event, as if you needed more during WrestleMania week. That April 8th would be a takeover. So that would mean NXT television on Wednesday would also be a takeover. So it would be a takeover on free over-the-air TV with the action continuing in terms of premium pay-per-view style presented matches, big payoff matches. The next night, a 2-night takeover, 1 night on traditional television, the other night behind the streaming pay-per-view paywall. I think this is an interesting idea, and I think NXT is the brand to try it with if you're WWE.
Yeah, that is an interesting idea. I think they realize that I think they realize the smartness and what AEW does of like, let's do the big free TV matches. Like let's hype up these big free TV shows. So yeah, that seems smart that they're doing a kind of make it like Clash of Champions where it's not like it's not a pay-per-view show. This is the whole point of this is it's something that everybody could watch. And then if you like it, we're doing another one the next day. And
also what a way to get you ready for go over to Peacock. We have something tomorrow night on Peacock.
Because weren't people really upset that NXT wasn't on Mania? They're not going to have anything to do with WrestleMania.
You know, there was a lot of speculation. Even going back last week, I had fans doing the show every week asking me, like, are they doing a takeover? And this is something we found out in the last, that the show was set for the 8th, though no matches have been announced for it. But they did the same thing with Vengeance Day. They announced it like in early January. We're going to be doing something on Valentine's Day. They just said it's a takeover on Valentine's Day. It didn't have any proper billing. It wasn't called Vengeance Day. You know, some people say, oh, it's Valentine's Day Massacre. Like fans were just running with it, which I think with takeovers and NXT as a brand, you can do that with because there's so many people, even if you don't care about the ratings, so many people on the hook with it because, you know, they're into what that show is doing, almost like an ECW where you can say like, hey, we have a handful of things on our show and you're going to tune in and see this and we're going to give you, you know, the other storyline. So we'll fill that in. Like there's some of that there, but I think they'll fill this card out. The last takeover was amazing. One of the better takeovers they've done in a long, long time. And those shows are very rarely bad. You know,
it would be cool too if on the Thursday takeover they have Roman come in and just destroy everybody, and that's your lead into SmackDown on Friday.
What a son of a bitch! You know, I think I know some people are opposed to the idea that it should feel different. NXT really does feel different from Raw and SmackDown. It looks different. It's the show that has live fans, by the way. They have the Capital Wrestling Center. It's limited fans, but they still have the takeover, the Thunderdome wraparound screens, which are live now. They don't have like taped fan responses.
I like that it looks like a cage. I like the caged.
It looks like audience. A Fight Club.
Yeah.
It looks cool. I think it's a way better vibe than what they were doing beforehand. And you'll have some element of Thunderdome at WrestleMania. There's so many fans that enjoy it. A lot of casual fans are into it. I can see plenty of fans not being into it. I think it'd be really cool. I'd love to see them interact more with those big names from Raw and SmackDown. Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, they had a fine match. The angle was interesting. I hope this means that an NXT squad of ladies like Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez could storm over to Raw and kick their ass.
Yeah,
because I was not a fan of Nia Jax.
Is Ripley
patting Dakota Kai in the head, like good for you, little kid down in NXT. I want to see Dakota Kai break someone's arm.
Did Rhea Ripley come up yet?
Excuse me?
Did Rhea Ripley come up yet?
They're teasing her return. They're teasing that her return to action would be she was at the Women's Royal Rumble in January, but she's coming to Monday Night Raw. And they didn't run any coming soon things, but I would be intrigued if they present her on television before WrestleMania, which she would be coming in there within 30 days of the biggest weekend of the year. But I could see her easily getting lost in the shuffle in that regard. Or I could see her being presented on that Monday night after WrestleMania, which would be the perfect time. That's the annual present a new hot face
season premiere of WWE. Yeah.
It's a good way to put it here. That's Carl is saying this. That would be 7 shows in 8 days. That's a lot. Are they asking too much of wrestling fans here? Because think about that. You're going from that Monday night Raw before WrestleMania, Wednesday night on USA and again with NXT, Thursday night Takeover on the network Peacock, Friday night on Fox, 2 nights of WrestleMania, then the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. That's a lot to ask of wrestling fans, isn't it?
It's a lot to ask, but sometimes us wrestling fans request too much, so we might be getting it.
True. But I mean, it's kind of worked for the network to a degree. You get an abundance of stuff. You get stuff you can say no to. And it's almost like that with Netflix. There's so many people that say, like, I have so many things I haven't seen on Netflix I gotta watch. I have Disney Plus. I got Disney Plus in like April to catch up on Marvel movies. I haven't seen Endgame. I know everything that happens in Avengers Endgame, but I haven't seen it. And so I just told myself, I'm going to get this. I'm going to watch that. I haven't watched WandaVision. I've got HBO Max. There's shows on there I'm working my way through. So there's so much. And also, like, WWE competes with all those other things I mentioned as well. They compete for your time. We spend our time with screens now. So it's a little challenging, but I do think them partnering with Peacock is an exciting new thing.
Well, and I wonder if NBC also said, like, hey, keep them on Peacock all week. Like, let's put out as many shows because we want them watching Saved by the Bell and Frasier and Harry Potter and stuff too.
Nick Basson saying, I'm so ready for WrestleMania. A lot of people, I think there's some a general higher sentiment for this year's
match of the night, Riddle versus Lee.
You think that's going to happen?
Be a banger. It's going to be the most meaningless match of the night, but it will be. I think that's going to be
if they get the time. If they get the time,
because that's 2 amazing in-ring competitors. I think Keith Lee will finally not work like Vince has been telling. Like, that's just a moment for both of them to show Vince, hey, we're not silly fools like you think we are.
True, but also Riddle's doing a good job at playing wrestling Spicoli. You know, even like
absolutely,
he's doing a good job of playing. Who was the character that was on that '70s show that I'm thinking of? That
what?
The dumb one. The dumb, handsome one.
Yeah, that was Ashton Kutcher's character.
Yeah, he's Kelso. He's Kelso. That's what he is. He's a broy guy who's lovable, and it says these ridiculous, rambling, hyperactive things. It's a character. You can't deny he's a character on TV. But at the same time, you have to remember, like, oh, you were undefeated in the UFC. You can legitimately murder anyone that you wanted. So plenty to look forward to with WrestleMania. I think the big hook with this year's WrestleMania is fans are going to be there. You're going to see 20, 30,000 people in a WrestleMania.
Well, yeah, and they're setting up McIntyre to get his pop in front of fans finally.
Before we sign off here, I don't want to go too long on this. Obviously, we'll cover this more in detail as more things kind of change here. The pandemic is fluid. You know, I hope you guys are staying away from bad fluids, the droplets and things like that. I know you're in California. Vaccinations are kind of slowly but picking up. I heard you went through you're up for one. You're just waiting for your appointment.
But I gotta find an appointment, which is
all right. I'm not bragging to no one. I was fortunate enough to get my first shot this past Monday. Which makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I have some comedy shows with social distance, live comedy shows I'm going to be doing next week. So I'm looking forward to that. If you guys can get your appointment, go get it. All right. It's okay. I think we're not at the point where it's okay. Go out there and get it. Don't wait.
Get that juice, baby.
Go get that juice, baby. Get gas. Get the needle. Texas has said their governor has said in this pandemic that they are opening up. They're at 100% capacity. Everybody open up. There's some trepidation about whether or not that's actually true. And then he's going to leave it up to individual businesses now to kind of just go for broke. A lot of people are critical of this. I'm not going to get into politics, but there's been plenty of wrestling names that immediately are like, look at this. Want to run some places? Let's go over to Texas. Missouri also is looking at this as well. They've said they're open up, but apparently they're not completely open. They have some other.
Massachusetts has specifically opened up live entertainment venues, so that could be another state people look to.
So especially if you're into independent wrestling, I think watch. There's gonna be an independent wrestling show announced in the next 5 minutes in the greater Boston area. But Texas is different because WrestleMania is going to run there next year. WWE is going to want to spark up that local market and get you ready. They'll run a city before they run a major show there. They'll go there and run their TV. Something makes me think we're going to see maybe we see some events in these areas of the country pretty soon, sooner than later.
Yeah, maybe a special Jerry World Raw or something like that.
What if they do it at like Cowboy Stadium, but it's not full? That would just feel weird. It's like, hey, we're gonna do a Raw in the lobby of Cowboy Stadium, something like that. Like just off in the background, you can see empty seats, but look at this. Like
Eddie Murphy Raw. Eddie Murphy Raw says it's Madison Square Garden, but it's the theater adjacent to Madison Square Garden.
That is to the Hulu Theater, as it's called. 5,000 seats in there. They did the Lions Den match. That's where Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart had their Lions Den match. Yeah, they did it in the theater next to Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
that's right. New York has opened up capacity 33% for arenas. So really, they're talking about the Knicks and the Rangers and sports teams being able to run there. With spread out different locations. New York is a bigger one. I think WWE will do something in New York some point. Just as we're WWE, we're a big New York brand. Yeah. I think they'll do something in New York. I don't know if they'll do it before WrestleMania. I could see them saying like, hey, let's just go film something there. I don't even know. It couldn't even be a full show. You could do a Monday Night Raw and say, we're just going to send a crew of people over there and you're going to film a match in this very isolated circumstance. And so I think things are going to get weird in that regard. I don't think WWE, because of optics and a publicly traded company, is going to dive into this thing full tilt. AEW, on the other hand, I think could. I think AEW would run these shows before WWE would, just right now.
Yeah, and they have practice because they've been running at a little bit of capacity in Florida already. So I think they kind of have the data of...
Which is the Wild West for this pandemic regulation thing already,
Yeah. But if anybody can do it safe, I think they have the data to where they're like, we've been running shows with people for about 4 months now. Here's what the transmission rates have looked like. So we could build, you at least have data to build something off of. WWE would kind of be shooting in the dark of just like, well, we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'm on board with it, man. I'm on board with doing it safely. I'm not on board with this is me, not anyone at WrestleZone. I'm not on board with what the governor said. Like, let's just open up everything. Now, if he said hey, I want a lot of businesses to open up again, keep your masks on, do your thing. But the fact that he would say a no mask mandate, it just seems purely political. It just seems like a really bad move to make. Now, I understand the benefit to live entertainment. You and I both work in that as comedians, and I worked around adjacent to the music industry and stuff like that. Things will be fine. We just have to be patient. But I could see some people saying, we don't want to be patient. I'm sick of business owners calling my office and yelling at me that they want to have full capacity. And you do restaurant work as well. Yeah. You hear people saying that all the time. Like, how can you film a movie across the street, but I can't open up my coffee shop? So I get it, guys. I get everyone's mixture of opinions on it. But one thing I don't want to mix opinions about is just safety. That's it. Especially if you have the vaccine, you can still get people sick. You know what I mean?
That's why I think even though there's people with their opinions on them, I think they need to make a thing. Only people who have vaccines can be in the arena, which
that's clean.
People. Yeah.
Mind you, we're still waiting on WrestleMania tickets to go on sale, by the way. Mm-hmm. So WrestleMania is expected to have between 25 to 30,000 fans, socially distant, looking very similar to what we saw at the Super Bowl, same stadium, Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. And there'll be maybe cardboard fans, some separation, a mixture of the Thunderdome, but live fans will be back at a WWE event. And then the plan, based on the last quarterly conference call from WWE executives, you would not see any WWE live events until the final quarter of 2021. This stuff, though, could change all of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could change all of it. So it'll be interesting, though. But I think WWE's been responsible, at least since the summer, with testing and all these different things. And they're doing the right thing. And good on AEW and good on Ring of Honor. I think Ring of Honor did a great show. They did their Pure tournament. They did it in a bubble. I feel for all of them. I feel for the different companies here. People are sending in trolley comments like AEW has signed Doink the Clown. Doink the Clown is signed.
That's what
Doink the Clown is now elite. He is hashtag all elite.
Yeah.
So pretty ridiculous stuff here. Keith, tell them about the show. Tell them where they can get it. Tell them where they can watch it.
This is Keith Pazel's podcast. You can get it on keithpazel.com. That's kind of just, I would advise to go to that website. Both my podcasts are on there, right on the homepage, easily navigatable, if that's a word. Mm-hmm. Also, if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, if that's your thing, it's This is Keith Pazel. And then I am Keith Hazel on all social media because I am the only Keith Hazel on planet Earth.
I can't say I'm the only Kevin Kellum. I can't say that. I remember when I got into radio, someone told me, like, you got to have a backup name. And I was like, why? Like, there's a guy in Virginia who's on a jazz station also named Kevin Kellum. So why don't you just use the first name Kevin? And I was just like, I'm just Kevin. And
Yeah,
I guess that became
that
became acceptable in radio, is just having a first name. And I was like, okay, but I mean, like, I don't think my mom and dad want me to say my last name. But I was like, whatever, you know.
Yeah, you should just go by your middle name and then Kellum.
Kevin, I've also, if you see me start calling myself Kevin Heff, it's because I want to do that. You know,
there you go.
Yeah. So that is on my list of names. But yeah, for you guys in the chat, go check out KeithPazel.com. Subscribe to the podcast, available on all the different apps. Hey, if you're listening to us, we're on the same apps.
Apple. Yeah.
So stack them up, do the YouTube playlist, play an episode of ours, play an episode of his, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Some of you have been with us for the full hour. Some of you guys popping in and out. Want to shout out, I got someone saying, I'm getting the vaccine next week. Yes, too sweet, brother. Too sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Right, get the needle in you. Get the needle in you. I were texting you boys saying, boys, I'm on the gas.
That fortunate juice.
I'm on that juice, baby. I'm on that juice. That's right. That's right. Reaching out. We can touch hands through the screen, baby daddy. We can keep that 6 feet between us. The droplets can't touch you.
The Dark Order
right?
sign.
Yes. I want you to put the hand out. This gathering, if you will, of people who can be 12 feet away from each other at a social distance, but also nod to each other. Elbows. Do not hit a friend with an elbow. Rub an elbow. Rub an elbow with your brother and sister.
2 masks.
2 masks. Double the mask, brother.
Mr.
Get it cold off. Just start saying somebody.
Yeah.
Mid-Atlantic NWA. Yeah, so a lot of fun here. Thank you for joining me, buddy. Always enjoyable. If you guys had fun and you liked Keith's take, definitely go check out his show. As I mentioned, it is a fun time. As I've told you, it is my favorite thing to play as I end the day.
Yeah.
As I pull back the Thunder Zone curtain.
Just get loose.
And I get loose. I get loose, daddy.
Get loose, baby.
It is my favorite thing to put on this TV and just sit there and listen to you guys riff about what's going on in the world. It's a perfect show. It is a perfect show. There's a lot of choices in podcasting, but it is my perfect show to just shut my brain off, get a giggle, call it a day. It's my favorite way to do it. So thank you so much, Keith. Give him a follow as well on the Twitter machine. Follow WrestleZone. Check out our Twitch channel, all the different things we're doing. Those bonus interviews with Matt Hardy and Al Snow are up now. We will be doing a live post show on Sunday after AEW Revolution. So make sure your notifications are on and ready for when we go live so you can get your comments on screen like James, like John, like all the WrestleZonians. And remember, when watching wrestling, do the most important thing. Don't bitch because your fantasy booking hasn't been fulfilled by billionaires that don't know your name. No, calm down. Calm down. Breathe. Don't look at the main event. Find something else in the card and just enjoy.